I'm thinking it's going to have to start with an exorcism.
Oh
Exorcism.
my God!
It's
Damn,
Roman,
you think
and
she
there's a lot of-
possessed?
What y'all think?
I don't think exorcism. I don't think an exorcism is needed.
I thought maybe a benefit concert. But
start.
I also talked.
Donation, definitely. Donation.
Of course,
always thought
you
with a
have
donation.
to. Yeah, that's the foundation of the start. And then you got.
And then you guys said 30 seconds just detonated a $1 billion brand. Everyone thought Nicki Minaj was stepping into power beside Donald Trump until the image flips and starts reading like leverage lost in real time. What is spreading now is not applause, but a clip, a roast, and a room laughing louder than the stage ever did, insiders say, as the narrative hardens around her before any explanation lands. On January 28th, she stands at a Treasury summit, calls herself the president's #1 music fan, holds his hand for roughly 30 seconds, commits hundreds of thousands to Trump accounts seeded with $1,000 per newborn, and accepts a kiss on the cheek under flashing cameras. Days later, a Grammy audience applauds her absence while Trevor Noah jokes she is still at the White House. If this is influence, why does it look like exile? And why music? Does silence from power feel louder than support? The correction has already begun, and it is not coming from politics. But I hope she knows what she's doing. I do too, because she's turning a lot of people against her. And I hope it's for a reason that she really feels for, and not just doing it for press or not doing it for any other reason, because I see a lot of the barbs really turning on her. Yeah. Well, we've always seen Nicki march to the beat of her own drum. So I feel like she know what she's doing. That'll make it right. I feel like she know exactly what she's doing. That correction begins inside the room, not outside it. January 28th, 2026. Andrew W. Milan Auditorium, Treasury Department Summit. Cameras are rolling. Kevin Alry is speaking and she is standing there, fingers interlocked with the president's for roughly 30 seconds while he jokes about her nails. The official framing is clean. New investment accounts for newborns, seeded with $1,000 in federal funding, financial literacy, hope. She steps up and says she is probably the president's #1 fan, and the room music claps on cue. She commits hundreds of thousands to the so-called Trump accounts tied to her fan families. On paper, it reads philanthropic, strategic music future-facing. But people close to major labels say the optics feel less like generosity and more like alignment inked in permanent marker, because this is not a tweet. This is money, stage time, physical proximity, and a public declaration of loyalty in a year where loyalty costs. And when you replay the footage without the applause track, the balance of power in that handshake starts to look uneven. You got to just realize what's going to happen here. Is Jay-Z going to do anything to Nicki Minaj? She's making it very clear on what she's coming out with. So, this is the part that you got to watch very closely on how Trump's handled this. Now, don't get me wrong, we've seen the clips that there was a relationship, that they would talk and music, the exchange and all this other stuff. Yes, we've seen. The surface explanation arrives quickly. She says she is moved by religious freedom and by the way Trump is treated, describing bullying during the 2024 campaign. She frames it as empathy, as recognition, as a mirror of her own battles. On Katie Miller's podcast, she speaks about always sensing a second job waiting for her, something beyond music, rap, something political. That narrative lands like destiny, not opportunism. But here's where it bends. Music, industry insiders point out that empathy does not require a 30-second handhold under federal seals. Empathy does not require calling yourself the president's #1 fan in front of cameras. And destiny rarely comes with a kiss on the cheek and a joke about manicures. The distance music between spiritual calling and staged alignment is small on paper, enormous in practice. When you layer in the financial commitment and the optics of the summit, the move stops feeling emotional and starts feeling transactional, and transactions raise a different set of questions about who is buying what. The build-up to that stage appearance music is not random. Last fall in New York, she sits at dinner with Alex Briovitz, a 28-year-old social media operative advising Trump, alongside her pastor, Peters Adenu, author of a book about confronting fear. They discuss violence against Christians in Nigeria. She later walks into the United Nations with Bruce Witts after an introduction from Ambassador Mike Waltz. Paparazzi captured the fur coat, the suit, the controlled entrance. She appears at Turning Point USA's America Fest. J.D. Vance calls her comments really profound. That is not a casual drift into politics. That is a corridor being built step by step. People in political consulting circles say that when an artist crosses that many thresholds in public, the alliance is deliberate, not impulsive. So when the Treasury Summit lands in January, it is not a surprise move. It is the apex, and apex moments are rarely reversible. The narrative from her side leans heavily on persecution. Bruowitz openly compares how certain media outlets treat her to how they treat Trump. He brings up that she has never won a Grammy. Outsider, music target, misunderstood. That framing resonates with fans who see her as a fighter. But then the Grammys happen without her, and the room reacts in a way that rattles the script. Trevor Noah references her absence, and the audience laughs hard, then applauds. Not outrage, not protest applause. That reaction circulates across platforms within hours. Music industry sources say the sound of that applause is what unsettles executives more than the joke itself. Music, because laughter can be absorbed, applause at absence signals something colder, relief. If the persecution narrative is meant to cast her as embattled hero, music, the public response starts to read like detachment. And detachment is harder to spin than hostility. Nicki Minaj has made it very clear how she feels about African Americans in this country. For I don't think she's one of them, obviously. And she should, under Trump's rules, she should be deported. Because I don't think reportedly that music she is a legal citizen, here she is undocumented. And so she has shown her disdain for African. Here is where the optics sharpen further. The Treasury event is not just symbolic. It involves policy branding Trump accounts seeded with $1,000 per. Newborn tied to federal backing. Her endorsement is not a quiet endorsement music. It is staged, photographed, and clipped for redistribution. She urges fans to defend him against smear campaigns, positioning herself as shield and amplifier. People in Washington say this is exactly how cultural capital gets converted into political messaging. Celebrity validation equals youth reach, but there is no visible reciprocation beyond praise and stage time. No policy advisory role announced, no formal appointment, no structural leverage, just applause and a viral clip. That imbalance is what insiders circle in red. Music, in high political rooms, proximity without portfolio is decoration. And decoration can be moved or replaced without music consequence. And you're not going to go sue everybody that's going to do whatever they're going to say. Nicki Music Minaj is not nobody. If Nicki Minaj tweets something like this and Jay-Z doesn't sue, it's very different than what. Meanwhile, the comedian Katt steps in with surgical timing. He does not rage. He does not attack her catalog. He reframes the image, observational, almost detached. The effect is immediate. What was framed as access begins circulating as confusion. What was meant to signal influence starts reading as miscalculation. Cultural commentators say this is the inflection point. Once the moment becomes funny, it stops being formidable. Power depends on gravity. Gravity evaporates under music laughter. And unlike policy debates, jokes are repeatable. They loop. They stick. The more the clip circulates, the less room there is for nuance. People close to her camp insist music. She expected backlash and remains unmoved. But silence from the political side grows noticeable. No follow-up spotlight, no expanded role, just the initial event and then a shift of attention elsewhere. Do you know what happened when I came here? I have to go inside. Huh, what you say? Can you please stop filming since just the first? No, I need a lawyer. The money lingers in the background like a receipt nobody wants to analyze out loud. Hundreds of thousands pledged toward accounts branded with his name directed at her fans' families. Music, financial literacy is the headline, but industry accountants whisper about optics versus return. What does she gain in measurable leverage from this level of public investment? Endorsements in other lanes tighten when political alignment hardens. Touring markets shift. Brand partners recalibrate risk assessments. None of that is theoretical. It is standard practice in entertainment contracts. Yet she doubles down publicly, saying the hate motivates her to support him more. That defiance reads strong to loyalists, but music executives hear a different tone. Escalation without visible gain. When loyalty becomes identity, exit options shrink. Music and this alignment is not framed as temporary. It is framed as devotion. Apparently, Nicki Minaj has dragged Jay-Z to filth. She blasts him for being evil and spiteful. Then there is the history she carries into this room. Years of public feuds, high-profile clashes, survival through cultural storms. She is accustomed music to facing opponents head-on, respondy.